Good, y'all. It's your man's IRLnash. Welcome to the Pokemon Center. We just saw some morbid bullshit. So I apologize if the energy down. We're gonna try to bring it back up on this one. This next video that we about to tap into is going to be Patrick CC. There are no friends in Hollywood. So let's see what it's hitting for. This at least should give us a palate cleanse pause because
What do you mean by that?
I've picked two videos that I think needed to be on opposite days of each other.
Rogen made them one of the strongest, most genuine duos in Hollywood.
But I do love Seth. He's kind of been there at important points in my career.
Their bond seemed unbreakable. The friendship between James Franco and Seth Rogen made them one of the strongest, most genuine duos in Hollywood.
But I do love Seth. He's kind of been there at important points in my career.
Their bond seemed unbreakable. That was until Franco got into some major controversy and Seth had a tough choice to make. He could stand up and defend his bro of 2 decades, the guy he made iconic movies and multiple millions of dollars with, denounce him, believe the allegations and essentially prove James was guilty, or simply sidestep, stay quiet, and act like he had no idea what James was truly like behind the scenes. Somehow, Seth chose none of these options, and his response left everyone wondering if Seth really knew about James' alleged behavior, or if they were ever really friends at all. The rise and fall of James Franco was one of the classic examples of, when in Hollywood, you never really know who your friends are. James Franco was getting into trouble with the law as early as middle school, but in a weird way, it helped him get his breakout role in Freaks and Geeks. One of his favorite side hustles was stealing expensive fragrances and selling them to his classmates. He said, like in 8th grade, we started stealing cologne. We had like 30 bottles of cologne each in our lockers at school, and then we could sell cologne at the dances. It didn't get any better by the time Franco landed in high school. While he was excelling academically and developing an interest in the school theater, he still gravitated towards that friend group that would encourage bad habits, and after he was caught vandalizing public property, he actually became a ward of the state, or ward of the court, where he was put under the legal custody of the government. When asked about this later in life, James said a lot of this stemmed from lacking a clear identity. By the time I got to high school, I didn't have a thing, so I ended up just getting into a lot of trouble. Even when Franco got into UCLA as an English major, he still found himself dealing with an identity crisis. He finally decided to take matters into his own hands, dropping out of college to pursue an acting career, something his parents disapproved of.
I don't know. It's
How you go to UCLA and all this shit, you got the identity crisis? Nigga, it sound like you a pussy to me.
seemed like they were very disappointed. They're like, well, my dad actually said you're being a fool, like for dropping out of UCLA and going to work at McDonald's.
What
you know?
did he want you to do?
Well, if he could have had anything, I would have been a mathematician.
Luckily for him, his edgy personality caught the attention of writer Paul Feig and producer Judd Apatow. They were casting for a show called Freaks and Geeks, a coming-of-age story where high school misfits grow up in the 1980s. They picked Franco to be the group's bad boy, Daniel Desario. Franco admits that he basically got the job because he lived his character's life in the past. What they did on that show was that they just found a bunch of people that they liked and they wrote the characters around them. In retrospect, the casting for Freaks and Geeks was actually immaculate. Franco, Linda Cardinelli, John Francis Daley, Jason Segel, Martin Starr, Seth Rogen, and Busy Phillips all sustained long-lasting careers in the industry. But even surrounded by all these talented and like-minded actors, James Franco still felt like a bit of an outcast that nobody liked, until he met Seth Rogen, who became his first real friend in Hollywood. Franco said, "There was a point where most people on the show didn't like me, because I took myself too seriously. I thought I was Marlon Brando or something. Then I pushed Busy over by accident, so everybody didn't like me, I think, except for Seth." And although Seth
Oh yeah. I'm okay now. Belts put down. Turn it around. Not sure how. Oh, I'm okay now. So hard to think or to drink. Now I
What the fuck is going on?
That drink was a buzzer. Now I need another. Whoa.
Bro, what the fuck is going on?
Just want a chance at romance. I learned
What the
now
fuck?
mugs and hands. Whoa, I'm okay now.
Jeez. This nigga tripping right now.
So hard to think, poured a drink. Now I can't find a clear mind. That drink was a buzzer.
Now I need another.
I'm okay
Oh
now.
shit. Oh shit.
Asked AI for a glass of wine, a Mai Tai, a martini dry. AI messed it up. I dumped my cup and filled it up. I'm okay now. My sense of taste is gone, no lie. My anxiety is gone, goodbye. Whoa, I'm okay now. So hard to think, poured
the
a drink. Now I can't find a clear
This nigga
mind.
tripping.
That drink
Was a buzzer.
Now
I need another.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Okay now. So hard to think.
Oh shit. Jeez.
Now I
This
can't
is
find a
hilarious.
clear mind.
I don't know what the fuck is even
That
going
drink
on.
was a buzzer. Now I need another.
Whoa.
I'm okay now. Whoa, yeah, I'm okay now. Whoa, yeah, I'm okay now. Whoa. How are you? Pleasure to meet you. My name's Dr. Don. And the story of that song, I'm okay now. I'm okay now, felt put down, but I turned it around. I'm not sure how I turned it around, but I did. And whoa, I'm okay now. I poured a drink because it was so hard to think. But now I can't find a clear mind. You know what happened? I did a poll on my YouTube channel, and the poll was, what kind of song do you want me to write? Do you want to write a song about social issues? Because I've done some of those. A love song. Or do you want to write a song about mental health, you know? Or do you want a party song? Oh, bing! Everybody was like, party song. So the last party song I did, the most popular one is Vodka Tonight, which was released on January 1st of 2024. So this is September 1st of 2025. And then a month after that, I did another party song called Refill the Drink. So it's been 18 months since my last party song. So somebody on YouTube said,
This nigga got the purest cocaine at his crib right now. Everybody else shit laced with fentanyl, not his.
I think Dr. Don may have a drinking problem. And
Nah.
I don't know. One man's problem is another man's opportunity, you know? So that's the inspiration for doing this song, is that,
Gee.
I mean, there's a lot of things that go into inspiring a song.
Should we
but that was
subscribe
one of
to
them.
this
Well, you know,
nigga?
people said they want a party song, and maybe if somebody doesn't
Nah,
party, they're not
alright.
going to get turned on.
Alright, I gotta move on. That's
Became a friend of his, I can't help but notice the strange way
I forgot what we was doing for a minute, bro, cause that threw me for a loop.
that they both recall hanging out back then.
That
There was
was
a period where Seth, Jason, and I all went to Jason's house,
That was
and they would
crazy.
sit at one end of the room and smoke weed. And Seth said he
Whoa.
literally would sit in the corner. I find it interesting that instead of just saying, oh, we
was
would
a
hang out, they
buzzer.
both recalled how James would essentially keep his
another.
distance from them. This definitely
Whoa.
contributes to the aura of mystery surrounding James Franco. In the first half of his career, he was a bit of a recluse. He didn't speak much, he didn't open up, he wasn't someone constantly being bombarded by paparazzi, and it could be due to some internal struggles. He said, I have a very addictive personality. When I was a teenager, I got over certain addictions, and that's when I started acting. At age 17, I really threw myself into it, and that became everything, to the point where I didn't even socialize. And this extreme approach to his job now would only get worse, to the point where it started ruining his personal life and damaging his reputation in the industry. But before we dive deeper, a quick word from today's sponsor. As I've gotten older, I sometimes think it's time to start taking my own health a little more seriously. I have a handful of different symptoms that I try and self-diagnose online. A biopic of James Dean. Hey. In 2001, James Franco got the opportunity to star in a biopic of James Dean about the life of a Hollywood legend from the 1950s. Even his buddy Seth Rogen initially told him taking on this role would be a bad idea, but James didn't see comedy roles as his future. To execute this role to his standards, he isolated himself from everyone close to him, especially his girlfriend at the time. I got it into my head that I needed to be isolated, and so told my girlfriend at the time that I wouldn't be talking to her for 4 months. It did not go down well. We finally made a compromise where I talked to her for an hour a week on the phone. I no longer do that. He also started smoking for the first time, going through 2 packs of cigarettes in a day, in addition to bleaching his hair blonde, learning to ride a motorcycle, playing the guitar and the bongos while reading books on James Dean. But Franco's dedication paid off, as it earned him a Golden Globe Award for Best Actor in a Miniseries or Television Film, and an Emmy nomination for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Miniseries or a Movie. Franco wanted to level up from here, and he began auditioning for the lead role as Peter Parker in Spider-Man 2, but he was chosen as Harry Osborn instead.
How did top producers get this kind of vibe without getting sued?
The role is one where I have a troubled relationship with my father, and I think that's a very relevant issue in this day and age, and I'm all for exploring that, and if kids out there can relate to that, I'm happy.
James had a very serious, dramatic presence in his career at the time, the polar opposite of the happy-go-lucky smiling goof that his fans would come to love. This seriousness was building him a very successful career, but the methods he used to fully immerse himself into his characters were seen by his co-stars as unnecessary and abusive, like when he destroyed his working relationship with Tyrese Gibson in the film Annapolis. The 2006 film was about a young man from the wrong side of the tracks, who realizes his dream is attending the U.S. Naval Academy in Maryland. In an interview, both Tyrese and Franco appeared to approach the roles differently. Franco seemed unenthusiastic, bored, and detached, while Tyrese Gibson was more passionate about the officer's motivation.
His character sees a lot of himself in Jake, and so he focuses on Jake just because he knows it maybe sees his potential, but he sees that he's not completely fulfilling that.
You know, there's a much bigger picture, and the bigger picture is I won't be in my position forever. I have to go up, so someone has to fill my shoes, and I see that in him. I see that he can be the next Cole. He can be the next great company commander.
When preparing for a boxing scene, Franco would literally punch Gibson as hard as he could, which clearly bothered Tyrese. He said, "James Franco is a method actor. I respect method actors, but he never snapped out of character. Whenever we'd have to get in the ring for boxing scenes, and even during practice, the dude was full on hitting me. I was always like, James, lighten up, man. We're just practicing." It got so bad that Gibson couldn't even look at Franco when the filming ended. I never want to work with him again. Franco was aware that Tyrese was upset with his method and strangely told reporters that he had heard Tyrese wanted to blow up his hotel room, but he also tried to clarify why they didn't work so well together. "We've made up, or I've tried to make up with him. Maybe I was too into that role. I don't try to be mean to anybody on a movie. In the past, I've tended to isolate myself, and maybe people take that as me being rude or me not liking them, but it's really a way for me to stay in character. I really had nothing personal against Tyrese, but I guess there were a lot of misunderstandings." And while you might think that this is just two guys being over dramatic, the reality was that James Franco's behavior led to him burning a lot of bridges, making people just genuinely not want to work with him. And besides his now distant friendship with Seth Rogen on Freaks and Geeks, it looked like the young actor hadn't made any friendships at all. He said, "And then after like 10 years of that, at age 27, I realized man, I'm so depressed. On the surface, my life seems pretty good. I have a career and everything, but I feel so isolated and lonely. But just as everything started getting dark for James, his old buddy Seth reached out and presented an opportunity that would change his career forever. Rogen was writing a movie with Freaks and Geeks producer Judd Apatow called Pineapple Express. Apatow told Franco that he should go back to comedy if he was so upset with his current career, and Franco accepted the offer. While they didn't know it yet, this would be the movie that made James Franco and Seth Rogen best friends in the eyes of Hollywood, only for that relationship to be put to the test when Franco would confront a near career-ending scandal. In 2008, the stoner action film Pineapple Express became the comedy of...
When this bitch hit the markets, bruh, Pineapple Express was a rocket ship. Super bad. It's like super bad. All of that shit came out. This was like the piece of resistance, as they would say.
Year, and stands as one of the most iconic comedy films of the early 2000s. It starred Seth Rogen as Dale Denton, a lazy process server who was constantly high, and James Franco as Saul Silver, a laid-back drug dealer who sees Denton as his best friend. The two get into a lot of trouble with a drug kingpin, and there are also a number of crazy side stories, like when Seth Rogen's character reveals he's been dating a girl from a local high school, which was just a joke, right? There's nothing weird going on there. The movie was a massive success for a comedy, earning over $100 million in the worldwide box office, which is almost 4 times the original budget. As far as fans were concerned, most of this had to do with the natural chemistry between Seth Rogen and James Franco. Seth was a real-life stoner. He couldn't go 5 seconds without making a joke and following up with his signature laugh. Franco was the more reserved, chill guy, like the guy who smokes and just sits there and smiles at everybody else's jokes. Their chemistry felt authentic, almost looked like they had been best friends growing up.
You know, I've been preparing for this role my whole life, I think, in some ways. So I didn't really need to method act. James takes his job a lot more
Because here's the thing, because you pretty much play you in a way, right?
You know,
and it's kind of an amplified you.
It's true. I limp in this movie. No, I don't even do that.
Versus this, you have to, you know, there's a large transformation from the you we see here versus the you we see on the screen.
It's a wig. It was a wig.
It's a wig. He wore a wig.
That was it. That's all it took?
That's pretty much it. I put on the wig and the character came on.
Venezuela was the 4th largest economy in the world in the 1950s.
Don't never show me no PragerU shit ever again. Don't never. Y'all listening? Y'all listening to me? Y'all listening through the speakers and shit? Don't ever play no PragerU commercials on my goddamn laptop.
Because we had a lot of...
After this film, fans started to see a version of James Franco they never saw before. You can see him try to open up a little bit, not be so dramatic or mysterious in interviews.
I'm happy with the movie. It seems like people like it, and it's actually like one of the first movies I've done in a while where I'm like, just like watching it with people. You know, the response is really good, and it's just fun to watch. So, just a fun kind of thing.
Why this one? Because Seth.
Why this comedy?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually. I've been offered, comedies before, but usually they're like kind of silly romantic comedies or whatever, and this was like the first one that felt like it was actually funny and be fun to do. So.
Seth, did you always know that James had it in him to be hilarious?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I met James, it was under, the guys that we were all on a comedy together, I was surprised when he went off in kind of a more dramatic direction, if anything like that. I actually remember trying to convince you not to play James Dean. And I was wrong. I was wrong. Yeah, that turned out well.
Pineapple Express didn't just bring James and Seth closer together, it also revived Franco's love for acting in a big way. In 2010, Franco's most notable project was the biographical survival drama film 127 Hours. In the film, avid mountaineer Aaron Ralston must find a way to escape after he gets trapped by a boulder in an isolated slot canyon in Blue John Canyon, southeastern Utah.
Bro, they say that nigga, it was a dead bird or something. Because I've actually heard the story of this before they made the movie. It was like a puddle with a dead bird in it. And the nigga had to drink the water from the dead bird. So that this looked like two booty cheeks.
127 Hours was well received by critics.
But, and then, the nigga basically sliced his hand off or something like that to get up out the shit.
Audiences and grossed $60 million worldwide. The American Film Institute selected the film as one of the top 10 films of 2010. It was nominated for 6 Academy Awards, including Best Actor for Franco and Best Picture. It was another film that cemented James Franco as a legitimate Hollywood star. He was celebrated for his willingness to take risks, as well as his range as an artist. And while not every movie they...
And he was in the first, in the remake of the first movie of the remakes of the Planet of the Apes
in was a big hit, both Franco and Rogen were in the middle of a career renaissance that made them household names. Franco's notable films during
because then they're gonna do the interview too.
This time included a wide range of different roles, like Eat, Pray, Love, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, Spring Breakers, Oz the Great and Powerful. Seth Rogen kept making comedies while also branching out into dramas and romances like Observe and Report, Monsters vs. Aliens, 50-50, Paul, Take This Waltz, and The Guilt Trip. And all of this really culminated to the celebrity-packed comedy, This Is the End.
For years we've been entertained by the idea of celebrities playing themselves doing supernatural things for some reason. I mean, like, there's always, Larry Sanders Show and Curb Your Enthusiasm. There's been a lot of things where actors portray themselves, but we thought like adding in this element that's like totally surreal would really bring that idea to a new level, potentially. That's what we were excited about.
There were dozens of memorable celebrity cameos in this film, including Rihanna, Emma Watson, and Channing Tatum, who notably played Danny McBride's sexual gimp. When discussing his own role, James Franco seemed to act like a completely different person. He appeared to be much more confident. In an interview, he expressed his love for Seth Rogen as a close friend and how their growing relationship was one of the key reasons why he became so successful.
Now, I wouldn't say that I'm like obsessed with Seth, but I do love Seth. Really from like one of the very first things either of us did, Freaks and Geeks, to now. He's kind of been there and at important points in my career. The beginning, Pineapple Express, when I feel like my career really did change and I started to do things that I really cared about. And
however, shortly after this, rumors began to circulate that James Franco tried to get involved with an underage fan, and the mounting evidence surrounding the event was pretty damning. Seth Rogen had a pretty crucial choice to make: dismiss James' actions or defend his friend in front of the world. In April of 2014, gossip sites published messages between the then 35-year-old James Franco and a 17-year-old Scottish girl named Lucy Claude, seemingly trying to lure her to his hotel room. The teenager was visiting New York City, where she saw Of Mice and Men on Broadway. It was here where she encountered Franco, who was performing.
Great book. It's a great book, Of Mice and Men.
Stage. At some point, Lucy and other fans swarmed the stage and recorded videos of the actor. Franco told Lucy to tag him in the video on Instagram. Soon after, she posted her interaction to her Instagram, and James began following her. Now, it's not inappropriate or even uncommon for public figures to follow their biggest fans as a show of gratitude for their support, but this seemingly innocent exchange escalated drastically. Shortly after following Lucy, Franco sent her several direct messages, asking how old she was, if she had a boyfriend, and for her number. It is particularly interesting how frantic the messages seem, asking multiple rapid-fire questions before she can even respond. The 17-year-old responded by telling Franco her age and that she was visiting New York City with her mom. At this point, Franco was clearly aware that she was not 18, and yet he still exchanged numbers with the teen. The two switched to texting, where he again spouted out rapid-fire questions. Can I see you? You're single? What's the hotel? Should I rent a room? Before continuing the conversation, Lucy wanted to make sure that it was really Franco, so he sent the teenager a photo of himself. He also held up a piece of paper with her name on it. The situation made headlines when Lucy later shared her conversation with the actor online. Franco responded to the criticism with a strange, now deleted tweet, writing, "I hope parents keep their teens away from me. Thank you." With Franco's looks, success, and friendly public person.
What? Okay.
Superlight 2C is a smaller, more compact version of the iconic Superlight.
Fans didn't really know what to make of this. Some people speculated that this fiasco was a publicity stunt for his upcoming film, Palo Alto. In the film, Franco plays Mr. B, a soccer coach who starts an affair with a teenage babysitter. The idea that James was role-playing borderline to promote a film is absurd to say the least. He did have a history of method acting, so some people wondered if this was just a part of that process. Soon after, Franco appeared on the Kelly and Michael talk show to address the mounting allegations. It was incredibly awkward, and Franco uncomfortably tried to joke around and share a rant about the dangers of social media.
I just didn't, I was just feeling awkward. I didn't want to come on the show and just feel awkward. So, yeah, I mean, I guess, I'm embarrassed and
Nigga made it awkward as soon as he said that shit.
I guess I'm just a model of, how social media is tricky. It's a way people meet each other today. But what I've learned, I guess just because I'm new to it, it's like you don't know who's on the other end. You meet somebody in person and you get a feel for them, but you don't know who you're talking to. And, so I use bad judgment and I learned my lesson. But unfortunately, in my position, I have a very good life, but not only do I have to go through the embarrassing kind of rituals of meeting someone, sometimes if I do that, then it gets, published for the world. So now, it's like doubly embarrassing. But
while this definitely was embarrassing and weird, this didn't necessarily address the full context of the scandal. Lucy was 17 and James was 35, and he was well aware of her age. To be fair, they never actually met up, and even if they did, technically the age of consent in New York City is 17, so in terms of the law, there was no crime committed. Seth Rogen did not distance himself from James Franco. Instead, he did what most people would expect of a comedian: make a joke about it. While Rogen was hosting Saturday Night Live, his monologue was built around this fake log documenting the events leading up to the show. For a punchline, he made a jab at Franco, telling the audience that he trolled him by sending texts as an underage girl.
Wednesday, 3 p.m. They read all the sketches out loud. I didn't feel like I did great, so to make myself feel better, I decided to prank James Franco. I posed as a girl on Instagram, told him I was way young. He seemed unfazed. I have a date to meet him at the Ace Hotel.
Seth Rogen's joke helped make the incident seem like a silly mistake by a regular guy, but it was also an example of how the two had become as friends. It was like Rogen's way of standing up for Franco at a time when he needed it.
I don't think that's what that means. I don't think that's what that means.
Most. The two of them were also in the process of releasing their most controversial comedy yet, The Interview. It was so controversial that the North Korean government threatened action against the United States.
Fuck threatening action, they did action, nigga. They did action. Them niggas fucking hacked into Sony and leaked all they goddamn shit. Leaked everything.
If Sony released the film. Of course, this mostly had to do with its incorporation of the North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, not to mention that it ends with his assassination. It seemed like no matter what, Seth stood by his friend and continued to work with him. James once said that he and Seth never had a fight in their entire career working together. It was always smooth. But Seth has a slightly different perspective, because James really tested Seth's patience on the set of The Disaster Artist. James Franco's The Disaster Artist was an adapted screenplay based on a film called The Room by Tommy Wiseau. Ironically, The Room is known as the absolute worst movie ever made. It was all about a director who makes such a perfectly bad movie that he ends up becoming a legend. Rogen said that Franco was perfect for the role, as he is often misunderstood for his artistic interests.
And Franco, as someone who has done a lot of weird art throughout his life, constantly being misunderstood, misinterpreted, people thinking that the thought was great was stupid and vice versa. It was incredibly personal to him.
But the tone was different behind the scenes, as Franco felt it was time to bring back the method to capture the eccentric personality of Tommy in a believable way. He said, "I'm directing a movie and acting in it, and playing a character who is directing a movie and acting in it. At no other time in my career am I going to do this again. Being Tommy off camera made everything flow easier in hindsight. It helped create an atmosphere on set. That being said, I didn't go so far overboard as Tommy. I didn't give bad direction. I gave what I hoped was good direction." However, Seth Rogen said he was getting irritated by Franco's refusal to break character. "I couldn't deal with it. Straight up. For the first 2 days, people would come up and ask me, 'Where's James?'"
Pimple, meet your Mighty Patch. Get results in 6 to 8 hours from Hero, the #1 acne patch brand.
James, and I was always like, he's right effing there. But regardless of how uncomfortable this made people feel, it was a lot different from Franco's fallout with Tyrese Gibson. The Disaster Artist ended up being a huge success during the premiere, and Rogen was also won over when his grandmother didn't recognize Franco in the film. He said, "My grandmother came out and she just did not get what the F was happening. She was walking around like, I thought James was in the movie. I never explained it to her." It finally looked like Franco had found the perfect balance in Hollywood, being able to portray serious, dramatic characters with depth and using method acting to be fully immersed, while also making silly comedies that have fans belly laughing, and doing all of this while still maintaining a close and unbreakable friendship with Seth Rogen. But just as Franco had achieved the perfect career and life in Hollywood, it was about to come crashing down, and we were about to finally see just how strong or weak his friendship with Seth Rogen truly was. James Franco ran his own acting and filmmaking school called Studio 4 since 2014. The idea was to bring talented entertainers together and embrace techniques that could make them Hollywood stars. But there was always a competitive angle, with the course ending and students getting together and making a short film to see who gets the chance to work with James Franco.
That was really good. We just saw some amazing work. They really did. In 1 week, these people, you know, they wrote, shot, and edited these things. Some great acting, great everything. Very happy with all this work. And remember, one actor is going to be chosen to work with James and Rabbit Bandini.
However, this institution gave James direct access to hundreds of young, aspiring female actors, ones who were eager for his approval and for a chance at achieving their Hollywood dream. This power dynamic needs to be respected and handled professionally, and James Franco having a history of pursuing teenagers made this a disaster waiting to happen. This all started to unravel on January 7th, 2018. James won and accepted a Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Musical or Comedy Film at the 75th Annual Golden Globe Awards. During the event, James wore a pin for Time's Up, the initiative to combat workplace sexual harassment. While wearing the Time's Up pin at such a sensitive time in Hollywood seemed like the right move from a PR standpoint to win over the public, Franco unintentionally ruined his career on the night of his greatest success, starting with these tweets from a woman named Ali Sheedy. "Why is a man hosting? Why is James Franco allowed in? Said too much. Okay, wait, bye. Christian Slater and James Franco at a table on Golden Globes? Hashtag me too. James Franco just won. Please never ask me why I left the film/TV business." The woman felt that she had said too much and decided to delete her tweets, but she inspired others to speak out. "Hey James Franco, nice Time's Up pin at the Golden Globes. Remember a few weeks ago when you told me the full nudity you had me do in 2 of your movies for $100 a day wasn't exploitative because I signed a contract to do it? Time's up on that. Now that you have a Golden Globe, why don't you give speaking roles that don't require nudity in your upcoming films to the dozens of women who have done full nudity and scenes in your indie films and art projects?" Another woman named Violet said, "Cute Time's Up pin, James Franco. Remember the time you pushed my head down in a car towards your exposed and that other time you told my friend to come to your hotel when she was 17, after you had already been caught doing that to a different 17-year-old? To make matters worse, stories were now surfacing that Franco was using his acting school, Studio 4, as a way to groom aspiring actresses.
Niggas be gross, bro. That shit crazy as shit. 17 is wild as fuck, bro. 18 and 19 is wild. You know, honestly. But 17, like, bro, 20, like, honestly, to me, for me, I can't date anybody who younger than 25. I'll be 32 coming up, and that's only gonna keep moving up as I get older, you know, so, but that's just wild. And I just date sex in any of that stuff because it's too much, bro. And for a nigga, like, you can just get regular bitches, bro. I be
into having X. One of the women who tweeted, Sarah Tither Kaplan, told the LA Times that the Time's Up pin was like a slap in the face and he unfairly leveraged his influence as a teacher. "I feel there was an abuse of power and there was a culture of exploiting non-celebrity women and a culture of women being replaceable. When Sarah got into more detail, the story just got worse and worse, particularly when she claimed that Franco coerced her into doing graphic X scenes.
It was a lot of nudity and sex scenes that I felt were not artistically justified and were added in after the fact."
In May of 2015, a company employee sent an email to Tither Kaplan and her fellow sceners, informing the class that he just wanted to let them know that the films are now up on Studio 4's Vimeo channel. Sarah later discovered images from the film on at least one X-rated website. According to Kaplan, there was also a nude scene she filmed with Franco and several women 3 years ago. He removed protective plastic guards covering other actresses' private areas while simulating oral on them. Kaplan continued saying, "I got it in my head pretty quickly that, okay, you don't say no to this guy." In response to the accusations, Franco made another appearance on TV. This time it was on Late Night with Stephen Colbert. During the show, Franco insisted that the accusations weren't accurate and that he truly wore the Time's Up pin as an honest show of support.
The things that I heard that were on Twitter are not accurate, but I completely support people coming out and being able to have a voice because they didn't have a voice for so long. So I don't want to shut them down in any way. It's I think, a good thing, and I support it.
Welcome to Visible, the ultimate wireless hack.
Franco's casting director, Cynthia Huffman, also came to his defense. James is all about giving up-and-comers, actors and actresses, and young filmmakers a break in this business. Huffman said, "I feel horrible that anyone was made to feel uncomfortable, but we went to great lengths to make sure all the actresses in the nude scenes felt comfortable and safe. From here, stories seemed to pour out of every part of the industry. One of them involved a woman named Hilary Dusum, who had taken a class with Franco in 2012 before he opened his school. For Dusum, the trouble started when she thought she would be a part of a short film, only to arrive at a strip club. According to Dusum, Franco dressed them up in lingerie and asked, 'So who wants to take your shirt off?' Apparently, when nobody volunteered, Franco stormed off angry. Dusum told the press, 'I felt like I was selected for something based on my hard work and my merit, and when I realized it was because I have nice breasts, it was pretty clear that was not the case.' Dusum said, 'I don't think he started teaching with bad intentions, but he went down a bad
She got them big ass titties, that's why.
path and damaged a lot of people in the process. And one of those people he damaged was 23-year-old Violet Paley, which would end up being one of the biggest stories in the news. In 2016, Paley said she connected with James Franco in hopes that he would help her with a script she was working on. As they started working together, she admitted that they had started a romantic relationship. However, things allegedly took a non-consensual turn when Franco pressured her into oral. I was talking to him, all of a sudden his was out. I got really nervous and I said, 'Can we do this later?' He was kind of nudging my head down and I just didn't want him to hate me, so I did it."
Looking back, do you feel like you couldn't say no?
No, I could have said no, but because of the power dynamic, the situation was so surreal and I wanted him to like me.
While the relationship has ended, Paley admitted that she had a lot of trouble moving past the incident years later. In hindsight, she says she would have done things differently if given another chance. "I would say, no, stop, get out of my car." She said, "The power dynamic was really off." By 2019, James Franco went from being one of the hottest names in Hollywood to being one of the most infamous alleged predators in the Me Too movement. On October 3rd, 2019, Sarah Tither Kaplan and another woman named Toni Gao officially filed a lawsuit against Franco and his partners at Studio 4. According to the New York Times, the two women called Studio 4 a scheme to provide James Franco and his male collaborators with a pool of young female performers that they could take advantage of. In their lawsuit, they claimed Mr. Franco and his partners engaged in widespread, inappropriate, and charged behavior towards female students by their power as a teacher and employer by dangling the opportunity for roles in their projects. These actions led to an environment of harassment and exploitation both in and out of class. Franco's lawyer denied the accusations and called the lawsuit ill-informed. James will not only fully defend himself, but will also seek damages from the plaintiffs and their attorneys for filing this scurrilous publicity-seeking lawsuit. 5 months later, it was reported that the lawsuit was settled, and that Ms. Tither Kaplan and Ms. Gao had agreed to drop their individual claims. In June of 2021, the terms of the settlement were revealed, disclosing that Franco paid more than $2.23 million to resolve the two separate legal disputes. Although many cases are settled out of court and don't necessarily imply guilt, to some the massive payout implies that he didn't want to take this to trial because there may be things that are found out that would harm him even more. And just as the heat appeared to be dying down for Franco, another actor named Charlene Yi spoke out regarding another controversy with him. In an April 2021 Instagram post, Yi said, "When I tried to break legal contract and quit Disaster Artist because James Franco is a sexual predator, they tried to bribe me with a bigger acting role. I cried and told them that this was the exact opposite of what I wanted, that I didn't feel safe working with an effing predator. They minimized and said Franco being a predator was so last year and that he changed, when I literally heard of him abusing new women that week. Predators will perform empathy, gaslight, and say they will do better, all in order to protect themselves and continue to harm others. In another post she said, white men saying it's not their responsibility when holding Franco accountable or when holding Seth Rogen and enablers accountable. Then whose responsibility is it? Yee also added in her caption that Seth Rogen definitely knew about the whole thing, insinuating that he was equally responsible. Seth Rogen was one of the producers on this film, so he definitely knows about the bribe and why I quit. Seth also did a sketch on SNL with Franco, enabling Franco preying on children right after Franco was caught. Franco has a long history of preying on children. This was a crucial point in James Franco and Seth Rogen's friendship, because before, Seth could have just easily ignored it and said, hey,
Oh yeah.
that's his business.
Now
But now he was being
shit.
accused of essentially being guilty by association, or maybe even enabling James's behavior. And it was here where Rogen had a choice to make. If Seth was genuinely a good friend of James Franco's, at seemingly the worst moment of his life and career, defending James would make Seth a loyal friend by definition. But it would also put him in a position where he could be canceled next, or worse, guilty of some crimes. But this controversy was just too big, and saying nothing was not an option. So a month after this Instagram post, Seth Rogen finally accepted an interview with the Sunday Times. And while people were expecting him to disown or defend his buddy, he gave a neutral political answer that is open for interpretation. Rogen said, "What I can say is that I despise abuse and harassment, and I would never cover or conceal the actions of someone doing it or knowingly put someone in a situation where they were around someone like that." He also apologized for the joke he made on SNL, suggesting that it might have aided in sexual abuse. However, I do look back at a joke I made on Saturday Night Live in 2014, and I very much regret making that joke. It was a terrible joke, honestly. When asked about their relationship after the controversy, Rogen stayed pretty vague and admitted that they had become distant. To fans, it seemed like they probably stopped talking altogether. Rogen said, "I don't know if I can define that right now during this interview. I can say it has changed many things in our relationship and our dynamic." Now, logical people would not expect Rogen to take blame on James's behalf. If Seth truly didn't know what was happening behind the scenes, even Franco would probably understand if he chose to distance himself for a while. But Rogen gives this perfectly vague response. He refused to support Franco, but also refused to deny or outright condemn Franco. After several months out of the spotlight, Franco finally addressed all of the controversy on a SiriusXM interview. He looked absolutely exhausted and explained why it took so long for him to respond.
At that moment, I just thought, I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to pause. Did not seem like the right time to say anything.
He also opened up about his relationship with alcohol in a way he never had before.
Along the road, of trying to get success and, climb the top of that mountain, attention from women, success with women, also became a huge source of validation for me. The problem with that is, I'm sure you can guess, like any sort of drug or anything, like there's never enough. If I get this, then I'll be happy.
But through it all, Franco denies that the classes he taught were vehicles to exploit women. He even claims that the course he called Sex Scenes wasn't really about sex. It was just meant to be provocative and keep students engaged.
To be provocative and cool, but like they're reading Melville, in the class. That's basically what.
Okay, bro. Like, come on now. The class called Sex Scenes. Come on now. What the fuck you talking about? What was the reading Melville, Herman Melville, in the class? The fuck up, bro.
I was doing. It should have been called, contemporary romance or something like that. It was a class where they did scenes about whatever, their romances and their, what they go through as young people. So meeting people on, dating apps or breakups or, just a bad date, stuff like that. That's what was being done in that class. It was not sex scenes.
And despite Rogen seemingly distancing himself from Franco publicly, James had nothing but good things to say about Seth.
Rogen. I keep thinking about Joe Rogan.
I worked with him for 20 years. We didn't have one fight. He was my absolute closest work friend, collaborator. What he said is true. You know, we aren't working together right now, and we don't have any plans to work together. Of course, it was hurtful, you know, in context, but I get it. You know, he had to answer for me because I was silent. He had to answer for me, and I don't want that.
Seth Rogen was basically forced to distance himself because it was affecting his career, not out of some moral.
In this video, I'm going to build an adorably terrifying Krampus animatronic. I'm Clint Carney, and I love creating all kinds of art.
Outrage. They were literally acting together in the 90s. The only thing Seth Rogen did was distance himself once Franco got himself into controversies to save his own career. Now, multiple years have gone by since Franco settled his lawsuits and he had his falling out with Seth Rogen. He was recently asked about his present-day relationship with Seth, and he said, "I love Seth. We had 20 great years together, but I guess it's over, and not for lack of trying." When Rogen was asked how he felt about something so personal becoming so public, he said, "I absorbed so little media that it really wasn't on my radar." So now Rogen says that James's extremely public controversy that basically ended his career wasn't on Seth's radar. But if it wasn't on Seth's radar, that would mean that Seth just coincidentally stopped talking and working with James at the exact moment his allegations became viral news and he was facing lawsuits. Or this is yet again another perfectly vague response for us to never really know the truth about their friendship. Sounds like Rogen is a solid guy keeping the trash as far away as possible, not to mention the career suicide it would be to continue making movies with him. Honestly, good for Seth. I feel like it's so rare in Hollywood for people to cut ties with friends, even when people do deplorable stuff. I respect him for that. His laugh also brings me a lot of joy. While Seth Rogen didn't necessarily owe James Franco protection from the mob, you would have at least thought he'd be there behind the scenes. Now, if James was actually this horrible person and Seth didn't know, totally makes sense why he would be done with him. But if that was the case, you would think Seth Rogen would just outright denounce James Franco. Like, Seth Rogen is not one to hold his tongue on controversial issues. So because he never publicly disavowed Franco, that means one of two things. He was really good friends with James Franco, and he may have knew about his behavior or his tendencies and maybe enabled it or let him get away with it or just kind of turned a blind eye. Or maybe they were never truly friends and there just really wasn't anything beyond the surface of two guys making movies together. And this is the hypocrisy of a Hollywood friendship. 2 decades of stroking each other's egos, making millions of dollars and profiting off the fandom who ship them as besties, only for it all to get dropped in the span of a month once people start asking crucial questions of what was going on behind the scenes. Their fallout is a harsh reminder that there are no real friends in Hollywood. I think we can all agree that life was so much easier when we could just laugh at silly comedy movies and didn't have to worry about the moral character of the actors. This is one of the many reasons why we will never return to that amazing era of early 2000s comedy movies. But if you want to hear more about that, check out this video.
Hey, that was a solid video.
What if every use of your debit card turns...
I'm trying to pause it. This shit keep on playing and shit. Pissing me off. Solid vid, solid vid. I have to go for that one. Well, not for James Franco, though. But, you know, for the video.